Hello, I'm Robert. Welcome to my channel. I fact-check stories that scare you. And I know many of you got really scared by these stories, and no wonder, look at them. The top story in Google saying that if you did search for relevant things, then it said the world's going to end, the world's going to end, the world's going to end. Nothing there to contradict this story that the world is going to end. And lots of people nowadays rely on Google News, and they use it much more than even like the TV or the radio, and they just go and look on their mobile phone and say, oh, Google News says the world's going to end, whoops, panic. And this is not true at all. So please learn from this. Google News has a big problem with fake news. It just does not tell you. It says top stories at the top. World is going to end. And it doesn't explain that these are fake news. So please learn from this. Google News is not reliable. It doesn't explain. It just gives you an aggregate of all the news stories, and often they are wrong. Especially on topics like this. Now, the Daily Express would not run a story saying the Queen has died when she hasn't, so it's what's called mixed. Media bias fact check call it mixed. And it wouldn't run a story saying that Scotland has voted for independence if it hasn't. But they are often run stories saying everyone is going to die, when it's not true at all and just made up by a journalist. It's quite strange, and this is considered acceptable. They don't even run into any legal problems saying these things in the United Kingdom. Nobody blinks an eye when the Daily Express says yet again that the world is going to end completely falsely. It's just what they do. And all of this was based, it started off with the Daily Mirror, and it's the same thing. Nobody blinks an eye that the Daily Mirror says the world is going to end. It's a red top tabloid. They usually have a little red patch if you click through. Not always, but most of them do. This was all based on, let's go up to it, this is what it was all based on. This chap, Paolo, then he was just tweeting to a friend. He wasn't trying to get attention. He didn't contact the papers. He just tweeted to a friend, to other people on Twitter, and he said to them that the Gregorian calendar goes out by 11 days every year relative to the Julian calendar. He had just misread what he read. In actuality, when they put the Gregorian calendar into place in the 16th century, then they did a one-time adjustment. When Pope Gregory did that, a one-time adjustment of 10 days, which means it went forward by 11 days for the next day instead of one. And so, and that was to take account of the Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar only differ by, first, before I explain this a bit more, why I'm saying all this just now is because I expect people to run another story like this in the near future. They might even say that they might even say it tomorrow. It's not uncommon, once there's been a false prophecy like this, for someone to just change the date by one day and run it again to try and capitalize on people who are still scared. And certainly I think there's a decent chance that someone will say again and just have a slightly different calculation and say, you know, Mayan calendar is going to end, and then just give another date, and then you all get scared again. Please, and then it might well hit all the sensationalist press. In this case, he wasn't trying to deceive anyone, he just made a mistake. The Mayan calendar, the Gregorian calendar, it goes out by 1 day, it goes out by 3 days relative to Julian every 4 centuries, not 11 days every year. For instance, 1600 is a leap year in both calendars. 1700, 1800 and 1900 are leap years only in the Julian calendar, and then the year 2000 is a leap year in the Gregorian calendar, and so it goes on. So it's only 3 days out, a difference every 400 years, not 11 days every year. So this is just a mistake. And he said he'd take responsibility and he'd take it down, but it was too late. The Mirror had already ran into the story, and using him as a source, they just said that the 2 calendars go out by 11 days every year, using that mistaken tweet as a source. And they then said that this means that this is 2012 in the Julian calendar, which is not true at all. It's 2020 in the Julian calendar. And then they said that this means that this is the start of the 13th Bactun in the Mayan calendar. The Mayan calendar doesn't use leap years. The Mayan calendar has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. So this is just nothing to do with the Mayan calendar. We know when the year 2000 was, and it's 20 years ago. The Mayans know when their 13th Bactun started. There are Mayans still today in Guatemala. And their 13th Bactun, just like we know when 2000 was, they know how their calendar works. They celebrate their years, they have regular celebrations and things. They celebrated the 13th Bactun 7 years and 7 months ago. And if you go and look at the Mayan dates, Mayan calendar, then it's not the first Bactun they've celebrated. Of course not, it's every 400 years, slightly less than 400 years. The last one was in 1618, which was after the Spaniards had reached the Americas. And then in the 13th century, the 9th century, and so on. And then they will have a 14th Bactun, a 15th Bactun, 16th, and so on. And then eventually they reach the first Pictun in 4772. And it doesn't stop then. Now, with these ones, you've got to subtract. Their calendar starts not at the birth of Jesus, obviously, they no connection with that. It started 3,114 years, or 3,114 BC. So you've got to subtract 3,114 years from, wait a minute, sorry, no, I've got that wrong. So if the you've got to subtract, so the first Pictun is 4772. Oh yes, 3,114 years you've got to subtract from these, because it's actually going back to 3,114 BC, and then you get it in our calendar. So if you go and look at those, but then so that's 150,000 odd years is the first Kaliptun, and then in 3 million years and a bit is the first Kinch-Iltun, or however you say it, and then 63 million years in the future is the first Alatun. And it can go on, because once you've got 20 Alatuns, so that'll take you up to 1.26 billion years for 20 Alatuns. And then they don't have a name At least nobody seems to have found a name yet for what the 20 Allah tunes are called. But they can certainly notate it, just like we can. So you notate 20 allotones like that, and 400 allotones like that, and so on. So their notation system, just like ours, can go on and on and on, and it's just a case of making up new names for each set of 20 units that you come to as it goes on. It's a slightly unusual calendar. Did I explain that? No, I don't think I've explained it. I'll explain that in a bit. So, yes, I did say briefly that they don't have leap years. The way their calendar works is that the first 0 is the number of days, and they have 20 days in a month. Their month is 20 days long. Then they have 18 months in a year, which makes a year 360 days long. This means the year is always going out by several days relative to the true year, to the solar year. So it's going out by 5 or 6 days every year. But they just let their calendar circle around. They don't have leap years. So the whole thing about leap years is nothing to do with the Mayans. And then when you've got 20 of these circulating years, then that's your next unit, then 20 of those. So it goes 2018, 2020, 2020. So it's almost base 20, except the first one is base 18. So it's basically the number of years base 20, except the second figure is base 18. It's 18 months in a year. So it's kind of mixed notation, like not like decimal. It's not base 20. It's mixed base 20 and 18, and it gives the number of days. And so yes, I explained. They just don't check the facts. So you've learned both. Don't trust Google News. Check what its sources are. So there are certain papers that are generally going to be okay, and other ones that aren't. And sadly, Google News doesn't tell you which are which. And the Daily Express, as I said, dare I say, that's absolutely fine for things like if you want to know, they will not say that the Queen has died if she's still alive. They will not say that the Scotland has voted for independence when it hasn't. They won't misreport what team has won in a big match. But they're perfectly happy just saying, telling you that everyone is going to die in a big cataclysm. And they say that maybe dozens of times, sometimes many more, dozens of times a year. And nobody in the UK blinks an eye. It's just part of our culture, so that's what the Daily Express does. They always do that. So just don't take them seriously. They're not meant to be taken seriously. And Google News should explain this, and should say something like, not to be taken seriously. That would be a kind of relatively not very aggressive way of putting it. Instead of saying fake news, just say, top stories not to be taken seriously. And regards a joke. Something like that. And that treat as a joke, not serious. That would be an authentic way of explaining what is going on there. And so I said, please learn from this. It is bound to happen again. Certainly with other fake stories that are not true. But it's quite likely, because the one mistaken tweet leading to all these stories, and the false prophets who really are constantly seizing on anything, and I can assure you that some of them out there will be scribbling away and trying to make some juggling with numbers to try and come up with something looks like sensible reason not in quotes, sensible reason why the Mayan date should start, Mayan 13th Baptism should start some other day. And then they will try to get the attention of the Daily Express, say. If someone like Paul Begley does it, then almost if he does say something dramatic enough, then the Daily Express runs it. And he's already been in there dozens of times. A multiple false prophet. I talked about him recently. He's a very strange chap whose message is, buy gold, please buy gold. Jesus Christ your Saviour, buy gold. It's very strange stuff. But he's and the world's going to end tomorrow, buy gold. I don't very strange. But anyway, he's often in the Daily Express. They often will run a story saying that Paul Begley has said the world's going to end. They don't add the extra bit about buy gold, but then obviously people who read the Daily Express then go and find his website, and then they get the message from him, and they go off and maybe some of them will buy gold, which is not a good thing to do in the middle of a pandemic, because the gold prices are elevated and they're likely to come down, and you have zero protection if you buy gold. None of the protection you get from money in a bank. You just lose the money. Anyway, so just to explain again that so as I say, this could well become a perennial, like Nibiru, the fictional planet. And so just to remind yourself, ground yourself, this is not, there's no sense to this. The solar system doesn't work anything like this. Remember, all of this is based on the way human beings count. So, counting in 20s, the 20 and 18 is 360. 360 days is nothing, is not the actual solar year. It's a construction of the way humans like wanting to count in 20s. And then the 20, 20, 20 after that, it's probably because we've got 10 fingers and 10 toes. If we were octopuses, we count in 8, and then 64. Squids, same thing. Maybe in the future they're very quite intelligent creatures. It's not impossible that in the future we share our civilization with parrots and octopuses and cephalop, whatever you call them, and trunks, elephants, which might count in 5 because of their trunk. And so, and then birds, they have 4 birds' toes. How many toes do birds have? 3 toes, don't they? So they might count in 3s. Got a crow. Then most birds have 4 toes, 3 forwards and 1 pointing back. So if you had birds, then they would probably count base 4, although they might count base 3. So in our future we might share our civilization with crows, are very intelligent, and parrots, and they might well have a base 4 counting system. So there's no reason why this is nothing to do with the solar system and the way the Earth works and the way the Sun works. The length of a backtun is entirely to do with human beings having 10 fingers and 10 toes. And this has got no astronomical significance at all. And then the Mayans also, they were like, if this is a very common belief at the time, India, very common in India, just about all of India would have believed that we live on the back of a turtle. And then also, I'm not sure if, in the Hindu belief system anyway, I don't think Buddhists believe that. Anyway, or we believed that back then. And then in the North America and South America, and believing that we live on the back of a turtle. And And so that's a very, very common belief, way back, going back and back and back, going back thousands of years, that we live on the back of a turtle. So we can learn from this, but this hypothesis, which they didn't even have as a hypothesis, they just believed it, it turned out not to be correct. When we sent our, when we eventually, first of all, we could look at the shadow of the Earth on the moon. It has a round shadow. It has that every time of day and night. If the moon is down at sunset or sunrise, and if the sun is at sunset, or if the moon is at sunset or sunrise during a lunar eclipse, you still get a circular shadow. And that is impossible geometrically unless the Earth is round. And then when you're in the northern hemisphere, you see the pole star. In the southern hemisphere, you see the Southern Cross. You can map up the entire celestial sphere, and you can figure out that wherever you are on the Earth, you can see the part of the celestial sphere that you would expect to see if the Earth was round. There's no other possible explanation of what we see, of having a seamless celestial sphere, and then when you look up in the star that's immediately above your head, wherever you are on the Earth, is a star you would expect to be up there if the Earth was round. So the Earth is round, there's no doubt about it. They knew that quite a long time ago. The Europeans knew that for sure. And the Greeks knew that towards the end of the Greek and the Romans. And so it's quite an old knowledge, but at the same time that some parts of the world knew the world was round, other parts of the world hadn't gotten on to this, and they thought we lived on a flat Earth on the back of a turtle. And then we, of course, sent our satellites into orbit, and satellites couldn't orbit around a turtle. And we sent spacecraft up, and then they went around the moon, and they looked back at Earth, and they saw a little round Earth, and then human beings went up and did that as well. And there's absolutely no doubt at all, we do not live on the back of a turtle. So, and the Mayans didn't know what the stars were, they didn't know we orbited the sun, they thought we lived on the back of a turtle or crocodile, they didn't think the world would end. But then why worry about the Mayan ideas unless you're Mayan? And even then, I'm sure modern Mayans don't believe that we literally live on the back of a turtle. It'd be just one of these symbolic religious belief ideas. Now, we can learn lots. I'm not saying we've got nothing to learn from ancient Mayans and people. They have learned. We can learn lots, but just not this particular kind of thing. And the Mayans also, they're not an apocalyptic kind of religion. Only some religions have this idea of the world ending in the future, others don't. The world just goes on and on and on in those religions. And the Mayans were one of the were a religion that just doesn't have this idea. They just didn't have the idea of the world ending. So anyway, I hope that will help some of you to be less scared, and in the future, if we're not available to help you, maybe this video is one that you can click on and watch right away. If someone comes along and tells you that the Mayan calendar the Mayans are celebrating their 13th Bactrian at some other totally made up date, and saying the world's going to end because of all that. Yes, I hope you can now understand that the world is never going to end because of some date in the Mayan calendar. And so if anyone says anything of that sort, then it's not true, and it's fake news. And They don't understand Mayans. They don't understand how the Mayan calendar works. They don't understand how our solar system works. Our solar system won't do things because it's a certain date. So anyway, I hope this helps you, and I will end this at this point. And do come and join the Facebook group Doomsday Debunked if you need help with things like this and they scare you, and or if you can help as a fact checker, or if you are good at reassuring people or explaining things to people with fact checking, then it's very important that you help people by in a reliable way based on good sources, and you know how to check your sources. If you're good at checking sources, you don't need to know particularly for many of these stories what it is in advance. You could check all these things that I've just checked if you had a background in anything, so long as you've got a background in fact checking, in academic sourcing, something of that nature, or some other form, or detective or whatever, any background you have in doing proper fact checking, then that's a great help. Anyway, so I hope this helped you, and yes, if you want to see more videos like this, do subscribe to my channel and like this video if you like it, and so on, the usual thing these people say, but and a shout out to Doomsday Debunked and all my fellow fact checkers there as well, who do so much work to help the scared people, and the other people there who help reassure them when they're panicking, and the moderators who keep the group going and make sure everything's ticking over and work so hard. Anyway, so I'll stop now.